The Honourable Member for River Heights.
Madam Speaker, the recent report of greenhouse gas emissions in Manitoba for 2017, a year that the Pallister government was fully in government, shows that one of the largest jumps in emissions was from buildings. Commercial buildings showed a 15% increase in carbon dioxide emissions, and residential buildings show a 10% increase in carbon dioxide emissions. The results show that Manitoba is not doing enough to modernize its building infrastructure. Why has the government and its predecessor not acted sufficiently to ensure that our building infrastructure is up to date and doesn't produce as much greenhouse gas emissions?
The Honourable Minister of Sustainable Development.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the member's opposite question and pointing out the fact that our government inherited a mess from the previous NDP who failed to reduce emissions, who failed to get their building practices in line with bending the cost, the emissions curve, and failed to take any action against climate change. Our government has been committed to climate change since we took office. That's why we established a $102 million conservation trust. That's why we established a $40 million Climate and Green Plan Implementation Act. That's why we have representatives from the building community on, providing advice through our Expert Advisory Council. We're going to listen to them and get our emissions down.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for River Heights on a supplementary question.
Madam Speaker, it's true that the previous government didn't do very well, but it's also true that this government, and this is a year this government was in power, is failing as well. The recently released report of greenhouse gas emissions in Manitoba is positive in showing small decreases in carbon dioxide emissions from light-duty cars and trucks. But there is a 7% increase in emissions from heavy-duty diesel vehicles. Why has Manitoba overall performed so poorly under this government with respect to greenhouse gas emissions? And why has the government, in its plans, not even worked with industry to establish targets and programs for reducing greenhouse gas emissions from these heavy-duty vehicles?
The Honourable Minister of Sustainable Development.
Well, thank you very much. And again, the member opposite, he points out rightfully that we're dealing with cumulative emissions based on the former government's performance and all the emissions that they failed to reduce during their time in office, and our government is taking action on this. And the members opposite, the only other point that he was right on is that we are seeing an increase in our heavy-duty sector. We are growing our economy, and we recognize that there are challenges when we grow our economy and protect our environment at the same time. It requires a very sustained effort, and that's exactly what this government is doing. That's why we have a $40 million Climate and Green Plan implementation plan to work with all of our sectors, including our heavy-duty transportation sector, to help them reduce their emissions and getting action on the environment.
Order, please. I'm going to take a moment now to call the member for Wolseley to order as well. Continuous heckling throughout somebody responding is not acceptable, and I would urge members on the other side as well that as people are asking questions that we respectfully listen to them as well. The Honourable Member for River Heights on a final supplementary.
Madam Speaker, this was a year that the Pallister government was there and they fell short. The recently released report of greenhouse gas emissions in Manitoba show that agricultural greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise. Production of methane from livestock has gone up 4.4%. The conversion of nitrogen in fertilizer and manure to nitrous oxide has gone up 6.4%. Since every molecule of nitrogen converted to nitrous oxide is a wasted molecule going up in the air instead of to fertilize crops, why has the government failed our province so badly in not working cooperatively with people and organizations in the agricultural industry to set targets and to provide programs to reduce methane and nitrous oxide emissions?
The member's time has expired. The Honourable Minister The Honourable Minister of Sustainable Development.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And our government is working with all sectors, including the agriculture sector. That's why we have representatives on our Expert Advisory Council providing advice. That's why we're acting on the advice. Where the former government failed to have the courage to act on expert advice on how to bend the emissions curve, our government is taking action. It would also be helpful if members opposite would support helping the Manitoba government protect the environment while growing the economy at the same time. Considering that this member is advocating for a $50 rising carbon price, which is going to have lasting impacts on the economy, he has absolutely no right to stand in his place and take issue with the climate and green plan while he's advocating for Ottawa's position in Manitoba.